for the process of creating a practice around moving from observer to freedom, we will continue to use our intention, attention, repetition, and guidance model or framework. This is a process that the Institute of Noetic Science did some research on and pulled together. And it's about how people actually learn to do new things. It's not somebody's recommendation. It's about how a widespread group of people actually engaged in learning new things. And these were the essential elements that they recommended. Intention in this case is, as we've mentioned before, different from a goal. It's neither better nor worse. It just is something different. And in this case, we're turning toward intention because it's a guide. It's a North Star. It's not some specific outcome in some particular time frame, which would really not align with what mindfulness and the territory of allowing are all about. Intention is how we show up. So, for instance, we're talking about showing up as an observer in noticing, showing up in a way that changes our relationship to our thoughts, our emotions, and our habits. An intention for moving toward freedom. So we might take a moment and reflect a little bit here and choose a recurring, troublesome thought, emotion, or habit that that's present in your life. It doesn't have to be show-stopping, but it can be annoying, inconvenient, shows up when you just most don't want it to be there. Just thinking about what that might be, recalling some of the specifics. Perhaps there's a little grasping or fear or resistance that you're experiencing, even as you're simply thinking about this troublesome thought, emotion, or habit. And noticing the presence of any sensations, any bodily sensations accompanying the grasping, fear, and resistance. And saying to ourselves, this is what this specific thought, emotion, habit feels like. This is what it feels like. Acknowledging it and allowing it. Simply being with it for a few more moments. And now letting go of what this is all about, including the sensations. Letting go. And perhaps in this experience of letting go, there's at least a glimpse of some space, of freedom, of not feeling controlled. Even if it's just a glimpse, that's all it takes for us to know what this is, what freedom is. and being with the sensation of freedom. And now letting go and coming back to this conversation. So that's what intention is all about. Very experiential, very connected to bodily awareness, which is one of the essential paths to awakening. So let's talk about attention for a few moments. We have an intention. That then suggests to us where we're going to place our attention, where we're going to place our energy, our effort, our concentration. And in this case, we can place it on those practices that put us in the role of being an observer. For instance, open awareness practice, which is simply noticing the arising and falling away of thoughts, emotions, sensations. Being an observer, open awareness. Or we can do a body scan. Being aware of the sensations in our bodies. Those are meditation practices. There also are many daily awareness practices. When you're engaged in some physical activity, whether it's walking or something more focused, like a specific workout routine, instead of thinking about how unpleasant this is or getting lost in some specific aspect of it, you might just step into a place of awareness of the experience itself. What does walking feel like? Noticing the sensations in the feet and up through the rest of the body. Perhaps if you're walking outside, feeling the elements, noticing what you're seeing. Oftentimes, physical activity is a great alternative to meditation when we find that we're overwhelmed by agitation and 10,000 thoughts a minute as we meditate. So we can engage in physical activity with intention and attention. Another way of bringing attention to support our intention, as we discussed on Wednesday, is to bring the 4 conditions of being human beyond our control into play in this process of observing thoughts, emotions, and habits. Noticing which specific conditions and how they show up uniquely in each of us are playing a role in shaping this thought, emotion, or habit. Being an observer of how the 4 conditions, how one of them or 2 of them are showing up in us. I mentioned the other day of my habit of figuring out, finding what's wrong, and how that's a practice that emerged from uncertainty in my childhood environment. It's a rather unskillful attempt on my part to bring certainty into an uncertain world. That's why one of the 4 C's might show up. So continuing our reflection here and going back to this troublesome recurring thought, emotion, or habit that you considered earlier, and thinking about ways that you might bring attention. Put yourself in the role of observer, not so much of this thought, emotion, or habit, but just in general, learning the art of observing, wiring together those neurons that are required for observing. Choosing among all these different practice options, one or two that work for you. So we'll go directly from here into a more focused practice. This might be a good time to begin with 2 or 3 deep breaths, filling the lungs from the bottom with air all the way up to the shoulders, and holding the breath for a moment and slowly letting it out and letting that extra energy and tension associated with cognitive processing that we've been doing. And perhaps again. And settling in to a meditative place. Settling into a place of allowing. Allowing our attention to gather right here. Allowing our attention to gather on our breathing. A few moments ago, as we were letting go of this thought, emotion, or habit, we were tuning in to a sense of space or freedom, recalling that experience, perhaps by turning your attention to the physical sensations associated with freedom. Allowing that feeling of freedom to be present. Savoring it. And if a thought or emotion arises that is distracting, allowing it to be present and letting it go. Coming back again to the experience, the feeling of freedom. And in this experience of freedom, inquire gently of yourself, which meditation, mindfulness practices are calling my attention at the moment? Which practices feel aligned with freedom? Just waiting quietly for whatever might come up. And coming back to the breathing for a few moments. Really feeling where the breathing process shows up in your body.